Good afternoon. My name is Charlene Nadalin. I am the founder of Amintro, and joining me today is Amanda Richards, Senior Director, one of the Senior Directors with Chartwell Retirement Residences. And we are thrilled to have you join us. The interest in this presentation was overwhelming. I know that we'll have people joining us in the next few minutes as they slowly log in online. Today, we are going to be discussing staying connected, the role of socialization and programming in senior well-being. We're thrilled to have you. And good afternoon, Amanda. Good to see you.
Hi, Charlene. So good to see you too.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm excited. You know, I always come to the table with so many questions and curiosity, and I learn so much from these conversations. I know that those that are attending are going to have a lot of takeaways as well. So really appreciate you doing this.
My pleasure. I'm excited to chat about it.
Yeah. So to get started, let's talk about the importance of socializing and socialization in seniors. You know, we trends and so forth. If you could speak to that, you know, we're a few years post the big C word, you know, COVID and pandemic and such. A lot has come out from that. Could you speak to it a bit more?
For sure. I think that, you know, COVID sort of shed light on an underlying issue that had been prevalent for a long time, and that is social isolation among seniors. And when we were all of a sudden forced to be isolated in our homes, it sort of brought to light that it really is a severe situation. And we know that there are better health outcomes for people if they are more social. And social doesn't have to mean that you're going out with people every day and you're surrounded by people all the time. But it does mean that there is a purposeful connection and an opportunity to be with others and engaging in conversation and just surrounded by people at some point during the day. And that can contribute to much better health and wellness outcomes. And we saw the very sad state of things when people were isolated. And we know that when people are socially isolated, it can contribute to some really negative health outcomes, really poor mental health. And it's actually, I want to say it was like the third most preventable cause of death was social isolation, which is absolutely mind-boggling when you think about it. So it's just such an important topic and something that becomes more and more prevalent as people age and their social networks organically tend to shrink. And so we look for ways to continue to promote the benefits of socialization and help people find ways to be social.
I mean, you know, one of our solutions is the Amintro Friends platform and online community for 50 plus. So I'm a huge advocate, just in general, of the importance of having social connections and a social life at any age, at any stage. And, you know, I'm sure many of us have seen these stats, and of course, I'm not going to quote it properly, but likening the negative health implications of social isolation to something like smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. It was something like horrendous. Yes. And to your point, yes, it affects everything, mental well-being, which then leads to physical well-being, and it's a vicious cycle. And with such a large population, it seems ridiculous that this is such a major concern and health risk that can be easily addressed.
Well, and I think also it sometimes creeps in. right, is this social isolation creep, because people's circles do tend to get smaller over time. And, maybe you're not going out every day with people or having people in the home every day. And then it's every couple of days. And then it's once a week. And then it tends to dwindle over time. And over time, you see this sort of creep of social isolation becoming more and more prevalent. So important to address it as we start to see it happen, or prevent it in the first place.
100%. I mean, you are in, retirement living, senior living space. I know this is a big focal point, and at Chartwell Retirement Residences. Can you give us some examples of, the good life, really?
Yeah, and I think it's people are somewhat surprised when they experience retirement living or when they move to a senior living community, and all of a sudden there's opportunities to be social if you so choose every day, and then the benefits start to automatically appear. I've worked in this industry now for 18 years, and I think back to when I first started. And when I first started, I was in activities and recreation and planning activities for not Chartwell, but a competitor of ours. And I had a resident who had moved in, and she had just been experiencing such loneliness. It was coming across as anger and frustration. And so when her kids would come to visit her, she was always frustrated. She was angry. She was lashing out. And that wasn't in her character throughout their life. It just sort of showed up that way. And when they sort of started to talk about it, they learned that she was just quite lonely. And so we started engaging in some activities. And one of the things that I learned about her is that she'd been a model in her younger years, and we were having a fashion show at the residence. And so I'll never forget, we put her in this little black cocktail dress and this hot pink feather boa, and she participated in the fashion show. And we didn't tell her son that she was going to be participating. And he came to the event that night thinking that he was going to be watching the show with his mom. And when his mom came around the corner in this little outfit, and her face just lit up, and he stood up and his jaw hit the floor. And it was the first time I sort of felt that gut punch of, oh my gosh, this makes such a difference in someone's life. She was thriving. And he was so happy, tears in his eyes. And he pulled me aside afterwards and he said, what happened? How did this happen? I said, she's been so engaged with the planning of the event and making new friends and getting involved. She found her spark, and it brought things back. And it was just such a wonderful moment of joy, but also such a testament to the power of just being around other people and engaging in things that you used to enjoy or now starting to enjoy, finding new hobbies or passions or pursuing lifelong interests, and just the benefits that can come across from an emotional, from a social, from a intellectual well-being. It was remarkable.
Well, it's purpose and it's fulfillment, right? And I attended a breakfast networking event a couple of weeks ago, and it actually happened to be held at a Chartwell location I'd never ever been to. It was where it was.
You were there.
Yes, I hadn't shared it with you, and it was phenomenal. But when I first walked in, I'd never been there before. I walked in, there was this lovely woman having, I think it was her tea, and she had the newspaper, and she was just sitting in sort of the cafe area, like a bistro area, before I entered the room that had the setup. And she stopped me because of my height. And I heard from behind me a comment about, wow, you're a tall glass of water type thing. So I ended up chatting with her. She was a resident, and she'd been living there now for about a year, and she had me in stitches. She told me some pretty colorful jokes. And she was just happy and loved it. Best decision she'd ever made. Once I got into the event, and you're meeting people and so on and so forth, I met a lovely lady, and thought she was there for the networking, and found out she was a new resident at that location. She'd moved in 4 months ago. She was a retired university professor. This woman was fascinating. And the reason she was there was she was volunteering to organize it. So a few of the residents were there helping to organize the event for us. And
Amazing.
she said she loved it because this is how she can give back. She had her career, and now she has the time, and she's looking for ways to give back to community, society, and that sort of thing. I thought it was absolutely, I walked out, just so full. I loved it. Like, it was just the most beautiful. And the breakfast was lovely too, but the conversations that I had with these ladies stood out for me. And so, I heard the joy, the happiness, in speaking with them. I can just imagine the positive impact it has on their families, their adult children. I've been candid about my situation with caring for my mom as she's gotten older and has had some health challenges in recent years. There's a lot of worry and concern and anxiety and fear and so many things that, strike us. I can just imagine how having mom or dad in a really social retirement living environment alleviates a lot of things for the children. So I'm sure you've had conversations and you could tell us what you've seen or heard, just like I have.
Yeah. It is remarkable. And it's, again, it's not necessarily that people are sort of forced to be social, but the choice to be social is there if they want to be. There's always people around if you want to have people around, but you also have the benefit of just being on your own in your room if you want to. And I think that for a lot of people, it's just knowing if you walk out the door and you want to go sit in the dining room and have a cup of coffee with someone, there's someone there to sit and chat with. And for a lot of adult children, it's sort of twofold. It's peace of mind knowing that your parent or your loved one has the opportunity to be active and engaged and social. And it's also a network of people who are going through the same thing you are as an adult child. We have a lot of people who come in and visit their parents and participate in activities or events. And you create this sort of sub-social network of people who are experiencing the same thing as you are. So it's also expanding the social circles of the people who have loved ones living in our residences. And then in terms of the outcomes for sort of how it impacts the peace of mind for adult children. And we were thinking a lot about this when we were putting together some of the notes for today. And one of the things that, we have is a fantastic video that I would love to share with everyone. It's about 2 minutes long. Marielle's going to play it for us. And this is a video that we put together about 2 years ago, talking about, it's one of our executives, it's our VP of Sales Strategy, and he's sharing the story of his mom and the impact that he thought retirement living could have on his mom had he made that decision for her earlier. So Marielle, I'm going to turn it over to you to play the video.
So my family is from Italy, and my parents were born in 1923, so they would be coming up on 100 right now if they were still with us. My father passed away quite young. He was 61, so it was about 1984. And again, my mom is, very traditional person. And so there was never a situation where she was going to get remarried or be with somebody else. So she lived the rest of her life for her family. And she was very independent. She did everything on her own, shoveled her own driveway, cut her own grass, did everything. And it wasn't really till her 80s, when she got into her early 80s, where she started to have some health issues. My mom spent a lot of time at home by herself. because as much as my sisters dropped by and helped her out, or other family members, she was probably home 95% of the time by herself. And, it really hit home after I joined Chartwell. I'd been in the role for a couple months, and I didn't know a lot about retirement living when I joined the company. I'd visited a few homes by that point, but it didn't really hit me until I visited Valley Vista, which is one of our homes, North Toronto, which is a very Italian-based home. And it was like going into the Italian club. And the thing you have to understand about my mom, especially after my dad passed away, was, she lived for the Italian club. So those moments where she would go and play cards on the weekends with her friends, she'd get all dressed up, all gussied up to go and play cards. That was her thing. That's what she loved the most. So she spent most of the time on her own, but that was her big event of the week. So when I walked into Valley Vista and I saw all these groups of people congregated together playing cards and socializing, they're watching the Italian soap operas on the TV and laughing and giggling, I just couldn't believe that something like this existed. And I remember walking out of that home that day on that tour and sitting in my car and just thinking to myself, oh my God, this is where my mom should have been. And we would have worried less, the safety and security of having my mom in a retirement home and knowing that if she did have a fall or something else did occur or a heart issue, there would be people there. Whereas, 95% of the time she was home alone and anything could have happened during that time. So, when I look at, again, those times, I think, wow, it really could have benefited the entire family, not just my mom.
Oh, my heart. That's first of all beautiful. And I can, it resonates with me so much. I'm half Italian, the Italian club. I'm like, yeah, I get it. What really struck me is, Steph, what he said was, until he joined Chartwell, he didn't know much about retirement living before. And I just want to iterate, this is why we do these virtual events, so that we have the information. The information is out there. People can be informed, that they're not blindsided, or there's no regrets. And he said, he goes, they would have worried less. It's what a profound, honestly, his story and his family's story. We're trying to help as many people as we can avoid those feelings, or reducing those feelings, by providing, these answers and this information and ways to gather more information, from an expert such as yourself. I will say to those that are attending, and I neglected to say it earlier, Amanda and I would love to have questions from you. We'd ask that you put it in the chat, and the last 15 minutes we will focus on answering your questions. If you have any comments or your own personal experiences you'd like to share with us, please also put it in the chat, and we'll take a look and we'll share it with the group. And don't forget, at the end there, stick around, because we're going to be doing a giveaway to one lucky attendee. It will be an Amazon gift card. So looking forward to that and continuing the conversation with Amanda. Can you, you mentioned earlier that your residents can choose to attend, participate, not, they're in control of their social life and their socialization, right? Can you, and we've spoken in the past, and you've mentioned scheduled and unscheduled. Could you talk about that and maybe explain what that is to those of us that aren't familiar?
Absolutely. I think that, if we look at retirement living, there's sort of two streams of socialization. There's the scheduled activities and the unscheduled. And the scheduled would be that every retirement community has a fulsome program of scheduled activities that residents can choose to participate in at any time. So we see things like outings to museums or restaurants or shopping trips. We've got maybe scheduled entertainment, card clubs, bingo, fitness classes, things to stimulate people in the 6 dimensions of wellness. So we'll see things for intellectual activities and physical activities, spiritual activities, and emotional activities, things like that. But then we also have unscheduled activities, and these are the things that just happen spontaneously because you're living in a residence. So maybe, for example, a couple of residents decide after lunch that they're going to take their dogs for a walk together around the property, or they're going to meet up later in one of their suites for a poker game. Or maybe a couple of gentlemen are going to go watch the Jays game in a common space together later on in the day. There's all of these sort of spontaneous interactions that happen. Someone comes down to the bistro in the morning for a cup of coffee. They meet up with someone else who's in the bistro for a cup of coffee. They decide to walk over to Shoppers Drug Mart or to the grocery store together. And, you just sort of have these spontaneous things that occur because you're surrounded by other people and there's an opportunity to do so. So I think as much as people might look at the activity calendar and think, okay, what might I like or what might my loved one like to participate in? There's also these sort of spontaneous interactions that happen just as life in the residence, which is so much fun.
So here are my question. You mentioned outings.
Yes.
Right? Or programmed, organized outings.
Mm-hmm.
What is transportation?
Oh my gosh, it really varies. So it's going to depend on the type of outing you're doing and the type of residence that you're living in. Some of our smaller communities have town cars that take people to their shopping appointments or their doctor's appointments or to smaller outings. Some of the residences, most of them, have a bus of some kind. So we can have big group outings where we go to the museum or the theater or to a show or to a meal or something like that. So it depends, but they all have scheduled outings, and then they'll arrange the transportation accordingly to make sure that everyone who wants to participate is able to do so.
And I would imagine, I know the answer to this question, but your residents have an opportunity, do they have an opportunity to share with the team members, you know what, I heard about this, or there's a new play, or XY, whatever's happening, the musical Evil Dead was playing in Toronto during Halloween, for example. It's a seasonal, it's limited time, where then Chartwell will organize and make it happen for those that are interested.
Within every residence at Chartwell, we have a lifestyle and programs manager, and their job is to make sure that the residents in that particular building have access to the programs and the types of programs that they would like to participate in and enjoy. So Steph mentioned in his video, we have a residence in Toronto that's very much catered to the Italian population. And so that residence has a lot of activities with that in mind. We have other residences where we're close to certain theaters or we're close to certain amenities or spaces that our residents are used to participating in as members of their local community, and participating in those events continues to be important to them. So we want to make sure that we're doing those things. So in every case, there's an opportunity for residents and their families to share their ideas and their input. The lifestyle and programs manager will work with individuals or groups to make sure that we're able to accommodate as many of those as possible. And we also don't want to have a slew of activities on the calendar that are not popular. We want to make sure that people are doing the things that they like. And so if there's a request to have, a historian come in and talk about the history of the local area, or we want to do a trip to the art gallery or whatever it is, we want to make sure that the activities are conducive to the residents living in that building.
I think that's a key point, is that no two residents are the same. They really are made up. They're diverse, like the community within. So,
Absolutely.
Valley Vista stuff, I think Valley Vista was the name of the one that has a predominantly Italian community. right?
Yes.
So,
Yes, but if you're in Calgary, we're going to do stampede activities. We host a big stampede pancake breakfast at one of the residences. Like there's things that go along with what matters most to the people who live in that community. And it's really important for us to still be very integrated with our local communities. The cities and the towns that our residences are in. We still want to be very connected and make sure that our residents are very connected to their local communities.
I love that. The other piece that I picked up on was that residents get together unscheduled, spontaneously. For example, they're walking their dogs. So that leads me to wanting to talk about the fact that many residents bring their pets with them when they move in, right?
Absolutely. We are pet friendly. So, I mean, if you have a Great Dane, it might be hard to accommodate, but at the end of the day, a lot of people have a small dog or a cat or a bird or a fish or a hamster, something that they're part of the family, and we want to make sure that we're able to accommodate them as well. So, yes, very pet friendly.
Tell me about, you mentioned programming for mental health and ways of contributing and offering. Could you give us some examples? Like, what does that look like? I mean, I know the benefits of socializing, right? Just the conversation and the chatter. What would a program look like?
So Fit Minds is one example of one of our cognitive programs that we offer. We also have a couple of other programs that we can bring out into the community, including Artful Enrichment, which is more like a paint night, like a paint and sip night. We have art projects that are put together for residents or for us to deliver in the community. And so they offer an opportunity for people to be, engage their creative side, but also to be social within a group setting. So lots of opportunities for things like that as well.
I love it. That the color and the word one, that's it's a bit much for me, but I see how it keeps the mind enriched and active and really challenged and stimulated, which is so important and brilliant. Let's see, how do we attendees, how do we family caregivers learn more about the programs, the various residences and Chartwells? How do they experience it? Can they? Well, I should say, can they really? Yeah. How's putting the pressure on you, but can they?
Yes.
That's really the proper question.
One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that Chartwell residences are open for you to come in and explore. And so if you are a person who's looking for retirement living options, or if you're a family caregiver and you have someone in mind who you think might benefit from lifestyle in a Chartwell residence, you can reach out to any one of our residences and request a tour, or you can request to come in and participate in a program. Join us for lunch. Come in and explore the residence and see some of the programs in action. Participate in a program if you'd like. That's absolutely an option that's available to everyone. The other thing is, in a lot of our communities, we do offer things like Fit Minds or out in the community. So you might find us at your local senior center or something like that as well. We highly encourage you to visit us at chartwell.com. You can search for the residences in your area and then reach out to them directly to come and join in an activity or join us for a meal or experience.
So for example, my mom is of Australian. She's Australian. My dad was Italian. So let's say I would be interested in exploring residences that are, would have larger communities that are maybe of, British background or, that sort of, maybe even Australian. I mean, a lot of them left Australia and moved all over the world. They're notoriously known to be world travelers, right, and adventurers. My mom was one of them. Like for my father, for sure, it would have been definitely Italian, and right now he'd be eating panettone and gearing up for the holidays with all the roasted chestnuts and so forth. Whereas my mom, different background. So if I were to go to chartwell.com, for example, how would I go about determining or finding out if the Chartwells in our area have a predominantly Italian community or whatever the case may be?
So we have a couple of residences that are sort of really catering to a specific cultural group or ethnicity, like our Italian community. We have one in Markham that has a very robust Asian population. But for the most part, that's kind of difficult to find online. The best way to do it would be to research the Chartwell locations in your area and then to give us a call. And we can have a conversation with the retirement living consultants at that property, and they can tell you more about the specific demographics of the people living in that residence. Is it older, younger, what ethnicities live there? They can share all of that information with you.
Okay. It sounds like it can, to a certain degree, it can be, it sort of could be customized to a certain, it's not the right word, but you can find the perfect community within the residence for your loved one.
And I think what's important to remember too is that in most cases, people are searching for a retirement community within that sort of 5-kilometer radius of where they live now. And the reason for that is you're already surrounded by the people you want to be surrounded by, right? You're in your neighborhood. You're with people that you've known for a long time. And so we often see cases where residents will move into a Chartwell residence and all of a sudden they say, oh, that's my old neighbor. That's my old school teacher. This is my old colleague, someone I used to work with. Because you're in that hyper local area, and that community is part of that. So we do tend to see sort of rekindling of old acquaintances and friendships too when people make the move.
That's a really good point. Not only for your residents, but also, within that 5-kilometer radius, it's for the adult children, their families, to quickly get over to visit mom or hang out or dad or grandma, grandpa, whoever, whatever. No, whatever the case may be. It's like we want to stay close and have easy access and be able to, part of being a family caregiver, sometimes the reality is that we live really far from our loved ones. Yeah. And that adds to the stress and the anxiety and, all of that overwhelm. But being able to have, your parents close or your loved ones and in a community that is really their community. I hadn't thought about that. It makes absolute sense that would be the case.
Absolutely.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to share with us today before I throw it to attendees and see if there's any questions or they'd like to share their experiences?
Again, it's just, being open to the idea of just exploring the benefits of socialization and retirement is huge. And so if you have questions, if you want to know more, highly encourage you to reach out to us. You can visit us at chartwell.com. You can call us. You can walk into any Chartwell residence and just ask for information or ask questions. We're more than happy to answer your questions anytime. So highly encourage you to do so.
Fantastic. Wonderful. I know that Chartwell does open houses a couple of times a year. Did we already have one?
We did just have one this past late September, and then we will be having another one in January. So stay tuned for that. But an open house is an opportunity. It's sort of scheduled for us to invite everybody in, but we can do that anytime. So if you would like to come in and see a Chartwell residence near you, you can call us and make an appointment, or you can come in anytime and do so. You don't have to wait for one of the open house events.
That's fantastic. Thank you all for attending. Amanda, thank you for your time today and this information. I really appreciate it. Marielle, for your support. And the video there that Steph shared about his family experience was very touching.
Yeah. It's pretty remarkable. So if anyone else has any questions or comments or wants to learn more, let us know. But thank you so much for having us today, Charlene. Always a pleasure to chat with you.
My pleasure. Have a wonderful day. Thank you all for attending, and we will see you soon.